It's a special John Lund Unleashed 49ers Camp Report edition. Shout out to Lund loyalists watching on YouTube, those watching on X, Instagram, Facebook, and JohnLundUnleashed.com and the Lund Lunatics, listening to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe and like John Lund Unleashed on YouTube and keep those alerts on so you don't miss anything. Now with the latest on the 49ers and the NFL, here's Johnny.
What's happening? Thanks for joining us. We are, we're on location. We're traveling. But that doesn't mean we have a ton. We don't have a ton to talk about. We do have a ton to talk about because it is Cutdown Day. It is great to have everybody aboard. We will do everything in just a second. We'll get caught up with everybody and say hello. It is, what is it, Tuesday? Man, traveling. It's like, what day is it? It is travel day, but it is Tuesday, so we'll get you caught up on everything. And to be completely honest, I'm going to pull back the curtain here because everybody's like, oh, my God, it's Cutdown Day. Oh, it's huge. Well, a lot of these guys are not going to contribute. Brock Purdy's going to make the team. Nick Bosa is going to make the team. George Kittle's going to make the team. Christian McCaffrey is going to make the team. Fred Warner's going to make the team. First-round picks, Mikael Williams, he's going to make the team. What it is about more than ever, especially right now with the 49ers, is it is going to be the weirdest team because here's a key word for you. It's called the initial 53. This is the initial 53. And a lot of times with the 49ers, the initial 53, it's kind of we know who's going to make the team. We know who's not going to make the team. And it's kind of set that way. But this year more than any other, what's going to happen here is, and I got it on the chalkboard there, episode 226. And by the way, welcome, and make sure that you're subscribed to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Please make sure you're subscribed. Also, make sure that you have your alerts on because we send out stuff during the day. And make sure that you hit that like button before you get out of here tonight. On the we got the equipment on the like I said, on the road here today. But as you look at that, and then we'll get to it in a second. But I'm going to kind of go down the chalkboard here a little bit. But you look at wide receiver, you look at cornerback, you look at defensive line, you look at offensive tackle, you look at safety, and I've been telling you all through training camp, they need an adult on the back end as far as the safety is concerned. And there's a guy like Tony Jefferson out there. I'll flash a few names for you tonight, but there's a lot of guys out there that are going to they're going to have to look at. And I got a bunch of names out there as far as wide receivers. They are not done on the wide receiver front. And today being Tuesday, it's going to depend a lot on what's going on as far as Jauan Jennings is concerned. Ricky Pearsall's looked great. Put him in plastic wrap. But then what? You know, Russell Gage is gone, at least for now. It doesn't make the initial 53. Now, is that because they don't want to guarantee his contract? There's a lot of stuff around here where a lot of people who don't know, or a lot of cheerleaders, guys who are, I don't know what happened to media years and years ago, and I'm not going to be get off my lawn guy. But what happens here is, and you got to be careful who you listen to because you got a lot of cheerleaders who are aggregators of 49ers stuff. And I'll just take you behind the scenes and be honest with you because as I've told you many times, I don't work for the 49ers anymore. I don't work for the Giants anymore. I don't work for teams anymore. I don't work for teams who have to protect their relationships with teams. So I got nothing to lose, and I'll just tell you the truth. The reality is a lot of the media has become cheerleaders of the team, and they've got to watch what they do. So a lot of times behind the scenes, what you have is you have certain guys who get cut, but then, like, for example, Thomas Morstead, they don't have a punter right now. Now, punters are boring to talk about, and I want you to stay right here. I don't want you to go anywhere. So reality is they're going to have a punter. Why'd they cut Thomas Morstead? They don't want to guarantee his contract for the entire season. So they're going to cut him. He's a vested veteran. And if you have him on there right away, he's going to get a guaranteed contract for the year. So, yeah, you'd think you'd need a punter, but who knows what happens during the season. So guys like Russell Gage and certain guys are going to get cut. There's procedural things that are going to happen throughout a season. So certain guys are going to get cut and going to get brought back. So we'll go through that whole process and tell you exactly who's going to get brought back. Here's the other thing, too, that's a misnomer in this whole process on Cutdown Day. Take you behind the scenes. Oh, my God, Sebastian Valdez got cut. And at the top of after episode 226 there, it says Cutdown Day, one surprise. If I had one surprise today, it was Sebastian Valdez, who had a great training camp, 55, the Hulk. And everybody's freaking out, thinking that someone's going to cut him or someone's going to pick him up. Now, remember, in order for someone to pick him up, they got to put him on their roster because the 49ers will put him on their practice squad in a second, and then he'll have a decision to make. Okay, clears waivers, comes back to the 49ers. 49ers know him. 49ers like him. He probably likes the building, knows the coaches. And so if everything's equal, he's going to come back to the 49ers because he knows he has an opportunity to play here, knows an opportunity. He knows Chris Kacerek. He's probably going to come back. I'm just giving you an example of him, 55. And he'll probably come back. Now, if somebody wants to put him on their roster, that's different. He becomes a rostered player. He makes the money. What are the chances of that? So all these dumbasses who fancy themselves as 49ers, who cover the 49ers, who are generally cheerleaders of the 49ers, who actually don't cover the 49ers. And I'm putting aside the guys like Matt Mayoko and Matt Barros and Cam Inman and all these people and, Nick Wagner and the guys who professionally cover the 49ers. Those guys aren't cheerleaders. A lot of the other people do and are 49ers cheerleaders. And they understand that these guys will go out and then they'll come back. And the majority of these guys who actually get cut are going to come back. So of your practice squad that's going to come back, you're going to have a few guys from other teams because you had an eye on those guys. But the majority of these guys come back. And maybe they'll, in a couple of years, maybe they'll come back and they'll be something. The Jauan Jennings of the world, right? That a couple of years ago was on the practice squad and he turns into something. And we'll get into his situation in a second because it is a massive one. And it might be the number one situation now that the preseason has ended and everything is going. And now they're going into the regular season. But he might be the number one story. But anyway, this is honestly the number one non-story story of the season. Everybody freaks out about who got cut. And the reality is we could have seen who got cut a long time ago. And the veteran guys who got cut, who might have some names on this team, and especially because of the wide receiver situation, Robbie Chosen, Russell Gage, certain guys who might get cut could come back, but they're getting cut because they're vested veterans and they don't want to guarantee a contract through the season. So don't freak out. Thomas Morstead's going to be the punter. How exciting. Russell Gage will probably come back because they're short at wide receiver. I don't know if Robbie Chosen will. But anyway, I'll flash everybody up on the screen for you, and you can see throughout who may or may not come back for the 49ers. But the people who report it and everything like that, it's just that they want to throw content out all the time, and it's generally boring. And to be honest with you, if we have to talk about Carter Bradley or Tanner Mordecai or another quarterback off another team's roster that the 49ers might be able to get, then the season's fucking lost anyway. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If Brock Purdy gets hurt and Mac Jones has to take over, what top 5 pick are they going to get? If Christian McCaffrey gets hurt and they have to decide which backup running back they're going to get, the season's over. Now, there are certain positions on this team that, the backups may matter. But if Fred Warner gets hurt, it's a major problem. If George Kittle gets hurt, it's a major problem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I'm talking about. Nick Bosa. If the top line players get hurt on this team because they are so top heavy on this team, then the 49ers are in trouble. So these are the players that we're talking about. Now, could they develop down the line? Sure, they could. And there could be some players here that can be really good players down the line, and they could be very good contributing players. But cut down day, we know. I mean, you can see players that are playing in the last preseason game and are playing a lot in the last preseason game and giving these guys a break. No offense to any of these professions, because every time I bring this up, people get angry. There's nothing wrong with being a UPS driver, a mailman, or whatever the profession is. They are unknown professions, and they are great, and they can be high paying, and you can make a great career and have a family and buy a house and a white picket fence, and everything is wonderful about all those jobs. Because every time I pick out a random job, people get mad at me because, hey, man, I wear the brown shorts. What can UPS do for you? A lot, and it's a noble profession. I'm simply saying that a certain corner is going to be being a UPS driver. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying that if you're playing in the last preseason game and you're playing a lot, you're not going to be in the NFL. You might be driving a UPS truck, as great as that job may be. That's what you're going to be doing. So we already know who is going to be cut. So today's not a surprise. But the surprise becomes now for the 49ers, okay, how can they fortify those positions, right? How can they fortify corner? Because did you see that, like, a guy like Dallas Flowers gets cut? Darrell Luter Jr. was playing a lot of special teams. That told you he was going to make the team, not because he's a good backup corner. The 49ers, beyond Diamondor Lenore, might have the worst corners in the league. I think that Green is going to be nice. Renardo Green is going to be a nice player out of Florida State, second-round pick in 2024. But because he missed key quality time, is going to have catch-up time against the Seahawks. And so that's going to be a problem. And as much as I thought of the nickel position, there's a problem there. Upton Stout didn't play in any of the preseason games. Third-round pick, Western Kentucky, liked everything I saw from him from practice, was talking him up the whole time before anybody else was, and yet he missed all preseason games. So I'm sorry, going from Western Kentucky and generally not playing once the pads came on and missing every preseason game does not qualify you. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news and not having my pom-poms out like certain people who cover the 49ers do. I apologize for that in advance. But it does not qualify you to cover Jackson Smith and Jigba in the slot in week 1 at Seattle, or Cooper Kupp, who they're going to throw at you week 1 in Seattle. That's going to be a problem. And they've got one quality proven corner for the 49ers. So if I'm the 49ers, I'm going out and scrubbing the league right now for corners. First thing. Second thing I'm doing is scrubbing the league for veteran wide receivers, because right now we have to start assuming this. We have to start assuming that Jennings is not going to play, because what Kyle Shanahan has done through this whole time is he's going to play, he's going to play, and he's going to play. I've said this the whole time, believe me or not, because I know this to be a fact. It has nothing, not a little bit, not tiny bit, not 50%, not 75%. It has nothing to do with the calf anymore. And you can quote me on that. Nothing to do with the calf anymore. It doesn't. This is all about the contract. So unless Jennings at the last minute, and I'll get into the NFL wire in a minute, in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, deadline spur action. We talk about it all the time. Trey Hendrickson decides 1 year and $30 million is enough, and he's in camp. Terry McLaurin, there was no doubt in my mind. Just use logic. Washington did not have all this hype in the offseason and go get Debo and build on what they did last year so they could trade Terry McLaurin, and all the dumbasses that were where are they going to trade him and all trying to get all the cheap clicks. They were never trading Terry McLaurin. I told you that months ago. They were never trading Terry McLaurin. Never. All these guys who ask for trades, Jacoby Myers being the latest, he's not getting traded. Pete Carroll is at the end of his line. He's going to try to win now. And he doesn't care what Jacoby Myers is going to get them in the future. He's not getting traded. He's not. Micah Parsons is not getting traded. Jerry Jones is older. He loves all this publicity. He is all about publicity 24/7, 365. I don't need to say this again, but I will. I worked in Dallas for years. If you're new around here, that he is not trading Micah Parsons. He loves all the talk about it. They're playing the Eagles in week 1, a week from Thursday. They're not trading Micah, but they love talking about it. That's what he's all about. No bad publicity, good publicity. Every bit of publicity is good publicity for Jerry Jones. So they're not trading him. So that's what it's all about. So as far as Jauan Jennings is concerned, they're at the point where if Jauan wants to dig his heels in, that's fine. If you had to make me choose at this particular point, I think he is going to play, because once you start losing money, that's where the rubber hits the road. He hasn't lost money yet. As far as training camp is concerned, he was a hold-in. Well, they were talking about his calf, but that was a bunch of bullshit. But as far as his training camp is concerned, he hasn't lost a dime. You get paid peanuts as far as training camp is concerned. So now what you start to do is you say, okay, Jauan, we couldn't come to a contract agreement. We wanted to, we were going to give you a little bit of a bump. You wanted X, we were going to pay you Y. Now it starts happening. You're going to start losing paychecks. And this is where it really comes. And Jauan Jennings wants more money, and I get that. And he tried to push him with the leverage that he had, which is, I'm your pseudo number 1 wide receiver. And the 49ers said, we don't care. I mean, they do, but they said, okay, that's fine. We're going to hold our ground, because as I've told you a million times, there's a difference between paying Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Fred Warner, the top of the top. And then there's Jauan Jennings, who I'm not ripping. I'm just simply saying that Jauan Jennings is a nice player, but if we pay you, then we got to pay all the just above average players, not the great players on our team. And that causes us a major problem. So we're not going to do that. We'll bump you up a little bit. We can do that. And we can explain to other agents and other players that, look, we did this because we were over a barrel, but we didn't give them, the big high money. So they're not going to do that. Or at least right now they're not going to do that. But what they're counting on is, as they go into the Seattle game here, is that, look, Jauan, you're going to start losing money here. And that's where I think Jauan Jennings is finally going to say the week of the game, okay, we'll keep negotiating here, but because I'm going to start losing money, and I don't want to lose money, I'm going to play. So I'm going to assume in that first week, Jauan Jennings is going to play, Ricky Pearsall is going to play, but now you start looking at this whole thing and you're going, okay, who's in the slot? And so today, as we looked at things, you're looking at a guy, and again, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is not a slot guy. He's a speed guy. You picked up Sky Moore. He can play in the slot, but I see him more as a special teams guy. But, there's a number of guys, and let me see if I can flash this up. For some reason, my arrow is freezing right here. So let me see if I can just do something here and get you the list that I have here. I've got a bunch of stuff here to show you. So I don't know, my road gear is kind of failing me right now, and I'd like to do roll call and all these things, but kind of everything's kind of frozen right now. So let me see if I can get this up here, and if I can't, I'll mess with it a little bit and see if we can't get this going. But it kind of froze up on me here, so let me see what I can do. See if I can mess with this a little bit, because right now it's just not playing around. Let me see. Let me see if I can. Let me just do this real quick, because I've got another list of it, so I'll just pull it up right here. We'll mess around with it a little bit. Let's see. This damn road gear. All right, so from a wide receiver standpoint, you tell me if any of these names do anything for you. And again, when I bring these names up, people go, oh, I hate all these names. And I get it. But this is what it's all about. When everybody cuts, essentially what you're doing is the lights come on at 2 a.m., you're at the bar, and this is what's left. So McCole Hardman, which is, hey, if you can't beat him, then he joins you. He's with the Packers right now. Of course, he's killed you with the Chiefs. Deontay Johnson has had major problems over the last number of years. I wouldn't touch him. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has Butterfingers a lot of years. One intriguing name, and he's had so many injuries, so he's not the same guy that he was, especially with the Rams, Robert Woods. But again, I'm talking about a short-term guy who can get you through at least the first 3 games until Robinson returns. One guy that I think they might pick up just because of the last name, Brendan Rice, was released by the Chargers. He's not going to help you in the short term. I think he could be a guy they stash long term. And especially when he was at SC, he was at Colorado, then he was at USC. I think that he has maybe some upside. He certainly has the size. This is a guy that Krug likes. Malachi Corley was a guy that a lot of people thought was going to be a guy that could run some of the stuff that Kyle likes to run. But again, I think that Sky Moore could run some of this stuff, but kind of a Debo type. But the Jets took him in the 3rd round, and that's a correlation with Robert Saleh. So maybe that's a guy. So there's some of the wide receiver names, and these are veteran names. So Corley, Woods, Valdez-Scantling, Deontay Johnson, McCole Hardman, any of those names. And again, the reason I'm bringing up those names is because those are veteran guys. Those are guys that, okay, you stick Valdez-Scantling in there for for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Can he learn enough? He was with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay for a lot of years, was in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes. So all of a sudden, there's a guy who's been with good teams. He's dropped a lot of balls, but again, he's got some speed, can stretch a defense. At this point, there's not going to be the greatest receivers out there, but there are some veteran guys out there. And still, as teams are scrambling, remember, as teams are kind of fixing their own rosters, and the key thing here is the initial 53. That's a key thing that you have to underline in this whole thing. The initial 53. There are still going to be teams that are going to pick a guy up, a guy gets released, pick a guy up, trade a guy. So the Niners are still on the phone constantly. And this will be really, to me, the most that they mess around with. I think this will be the most that they mess around with, the 49ers, as far as, let me shut this because maybe that's messing with this thing. There we go. I've got it. There we go. This somehow it got attached to the iPad and it was messing with this stuff. So let me throw these names at you. These are some of the available names, and then I'm going to do roll call. Sorry, I couldn't do roll call for a minute there. So look, I'm not saying that these are lovely names, but like Cleve Farrell, for example, got cut by the Commanders. A lot of people thought in the Super Bowl that was a huge guy to be missing because he can set an edge. I don't know that they would pick him up, but they liked him. Kenyon Green, they need some depth of the guards. He was a former first-round pick, got cut by the Eagles. Jake Hayner's a guy, Danville guy. Could they use him possibly? And then I mentioned the receivers, Hardman, Johnson, Valdez-Scantling, Robert Woods. I wouldn't be surprised. Robert Woods. Maybe Corley's a long-term guy. I'll get into the other things in just a second. Hopkins. Let me shut that down for a second. Anyway, we'll get into some of those things and skip around. But good, let me just say hi to everybody because I was messing around with this whole thing as far as the I couldn't get to the people, and I haven't gotten to the people here. So let's get going, man. Say hi to everybody because I had the I don't know why it wasn't working, but it wasn't working there for a minute. So did somebody say Ronnie Bell? Oh no. Oh, Harry, why did you do that? But I get it, man. Ronnie Bell got cut today. So, that might be a guy that, that might do that. But Harry Balzac, very nice. I like that. Very nice. My friend Jake is in here. Jake and I are related, by the way. James is here today. Joy, it is great. You tripping is here. Jeff, my good friend, is here tonight. The 1420 is there. Great to see you. James, what's going on? Good to see you, my friend. Tommy is here. Chris is here, my friend. Look at this, man. A great turnout tonight in the chat room tonight, by the way. Coach, it is great to see you. You tripping. By the way, if you've got a name, give me a name. Just throw a name out there. There are no bad suggestions tonight. We're just throwing some names out here. But I do just believe, I think, by the way, put me on record. I think Jennings is going to be there week 1 because he's going to start losing money. I think Ricky is going to be there. I think actually they're going to sign back a Russell Gage. They just don't want to guarantee the money. I'm just telling you, there's procedural things that are going to happen. It's going to happen. So we'll see. Who else is here today? Eric, it is great to see you. Pine Needle is here tonight. That is very cool to see you. IU, it is good to see you. Very cool. Bucko Sports, haven't seen you in a while. It's very cool to see you, my friend. Very nice. Fuge, I got to get with Krug. I don't know what happened this Friday. I was all set to go, and so I don't know what happened on the bottom of the pint. I got to get with him, and I owe you, man. Let's see. Tommy's got a look at that. Tommy with a super tonight. Very cool. I got to get with the supers. Yeah, Garendo. I'm not going to call him a bust yet, but guys, there's a reason why they picked up Brian Robinson. First of all, should I use this term? Brian Robinson's a badass, man. He's 230 pounds. I've used this term before. I've likened him to this guy before. They got to start using McCaffrey, even though he's going to hate this. They got to start using him like Steph. Steph's minutes went 37, 36, 34, 33, 31. Christian never wants to come out of a game. And if you ask him a question about it, he shoots you this nasty look. And he hates it. I mean, he just hates it. And Kyle every year says, I'm going to use him less. And you just can't help it. Kyle can't help it, And this year you looked at the thing and you went, God, Garendo's always hurt. And I really like Jordan James. I do. I liked his burst in camp. And he caught a couple of nice balls in 11 on 11. I'm like, this guy's got something. Then he broke his finger and kind of had to restart. And I use this term with you all the time. And it's huge with Kyle. Trust. And especially with running backs, don't you dare fumble on me. And Kyle's got this term that he uses all the time, expected yards. So there's, in the running play, if you get bonus yards, that's great. But if it's supposed to at least get 4, that's important to Kyle. If it gets, 7 or 8 or 10 or 20 or you break it, awesome. That's incredible. But the minimum of 4, if it's supposed to get 4, it better get 4. That pisses Kyle off if it doesn't. So you got to get those yards. And so you don't know if he trusts James. So what he'll do is he'll be like, Garendo breaks a 90-yarder in Seattle and we all freak out and we go, you see that? But to Kyle, it's like, but can you get the 4, and you break a 90? You hear him talk about that all the time and you go, but I saw him break a 90. And Kyle goes, yeah, that's great. But I want 4. And then if you get the 90, that's great. But he's got to get the 4s consistently. And so Garendo doesn't always do that because he's a young guy. And so in the back of our head, we think as a fan, 99, but he got the 90. So we got to keep him in there because he might do that. But that's a lottery ticket. He wants the 4s. And so when he sees a Brian Robinson at 230, he's got the trust of that guy. And so now maybe he can use less of McCaffrey, which extends his career, and we all get excited about that. So while I'm not going to call Garendo a bust yet, what I'm seeing is he's a really young guy, and we got to remember, and when I say young, I don't mean so much by age as I do experience in college, because remember, he's at Wisconsin for a long time. He was a receiver for a while. this is only really his second, it's his second year in the league, but also in running in the zone scheme, which is kind of a float, see it, feel it kind of a thing. And it just takes a little bit of time. And so he's not there yet, but he's super fast and he's got the tools and he's getting better at it. But all of a sudden you have an opportunity to get a Brian Robinson. And if the Niners want to get back to punch in the face, run the ball, possess the ball, and remember that stat of, 30 plus runs with Kyle Shanahan, and you start looking at those numbers analytically and you say, okay, if they do this and if they do this and if they do this, they win. Well, that's big with Kyle. If we do this, this, and this, we win football games. And so they want to get back to that. And one of the key ones is runs. And so, yeah, you want to have Christian McCaffrey do those things, but it can't be 25 McCaffrey runs. It can be 15 and 5 or 6 receptions, and then let Brian Robinson at 230 pounds bulldoze north-south runs and beat down a defense so that McCaffrey can go in there and bust a few and tire these guys, let Robinson tire these guys out or short yardage runs. And one of the things that Robinson, if you look up analytics on Robinson, great short yardage runner, great third down and short runner. So get him in there and let him bust heads in those situations and not have McCaffrey have to do all those things. So while I won't yet call Guerrero a bust, it's just not his gig. That kind of a runner, that tough runner thing is not his gig, and you don't want him to have McCaffrey doing all that stuff. So I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Who else? Did I miss anybody? DC, it is great to see you, my friend. Valdez, again, I'll go back to, and I want to stay on my chalkboard here, but I'll go back to, remember, there's got to be a spot on somebody's roster. Because if another team says, hey, we'll put you on our practice squad, the Niners will put him on their practice squad all day. And then it becomes a decision for Valdez to say, I'm just going to throw out a team. Okay, am I going on the practice squad of the Packers, who I don't know the coach, I don't know the D-line coach, I don't know the DC. I mean, if he comes back to the Niners, he's 90% ahead of the game. He knows Saleh. He knows Saleh likes him. He knows Chris Kasarik. He knows the style. He knows Kyle. It's just, it came down to probably they're looking at this thing, think of the Niners, and they're going, okay, we're keeping Collins, we're keeping West, or we're keeping Mikael Williams. We got all these young guys. We got to keep a couple of these vets in here. We can't keep all young guys. We hope he clears waivers. We'll bring him back. So he's going to come back to the practice squad of the Niners versus a team. Obviously he'll go to a team if they want to give him a roster spot. Now that's totally different. You're getting paid different. Everything's good. That's different. But we all assume as fans, oh my God, we cut this guy, he's going to get a roster spot. Maybe. But what happens is, of the 16 practice squad spots, I don't know, 13 or 14 are taken by guys that were in your camp. And then you see an opportunity for somebody who fits your team, and maybe you'll get 2 or 3 that weren't in your camp. Now, for example, maybe it's a veteran guy, And for example, I'll give you a great example. The Chargers let Tony Jefferson go today. Or yesterday, whatever it was. And to me, that has shades of Gibson a couple of years ago for the Niners all over it. I've been screaming for an adult in the room on the back end. And you don't need me to tell you this, but I'll tell you anyway. On the back end, you screw that up, that's an 80-yard touchdown. So, and the Niners have so much youth, and a guy like Jason Pinnock, who didn't have great analytics against the pass last year for the Giants, really good special teams player, maybe is probably going to be forced to start. I like him in the box. I like him going forward. I like him stopping the run. Going backwards, I saw it in camp. Not so much. So I need somebody in the back end who sees it, can help me get my guys set. Because remember, Diamondor Lindor, he's taking great steps. He's a great leader. I think he's a really nice player, and he's ascending. But even a guy like Renardo, and he's still young. And then a guy like Renardo Green's in his second year, going to make mistakes. And then my safeties are going to be a guy like Pinnock, who I think is probably best served as a safety. But even if he's going to start, he's probably near the line. Jair Brown has made a lot of mistakes in the deep part of the field. That makes me a little bit nervous. Mustafa, even when he comes back and he's going to start on the PUP list, miss at least the first 4 games, he's a box guy. So where's my guy that's going to go sideline to sideline and get over there when my safety gets beat? Where's that guy in the roster? They lack that person. And at least with a guy like Jefferson, he's a veteran guy, and he's at least going to get guys lined up. And they have so much youth back there. So let me just pop up my list again at the available guys. So, for example, who did I put on there? So beyond the wide receivers, and I'll get to Hopkins in a second too. But like C.J. Henderson, I put up there because not because he's been so great. He's been bumped around in a bunch of teams, but he's a former top 10 pick. They need corner help, veteran corner help. I'm okay with Green, and I'm okay with obviously Lenore. What's after that? And then as far as same thing, Darian Kendrick of the Rams got cut today. Veteran corner. Could he be a third corner? Absolutely. Lamb can I put up there because I want to say, okay, Larry, I hear you for the 90th time. But a guy like Mike Edwards, Super Bowl champion, safety. Is he the greatest safety in the world? No, he's not. But again, lights came on at 2 a.m. and you're scrambling. There he is. Tony Jefferson, I just mentioned. Again, not great players, but veteran guys who are at least going to get you lined up on the back end. I'd like the Niners to pick one of those guys up at least on the practice squad, at least to have an ear in these young guys, a voice in these young guys' ears. Even a guy like Jair Brown going into his third year who had a bad second year where you're like, okay, this is how you get these guys lined up. Even if they're not up on Sundays, they need somebody on that back end, as I like to say, an adult in the room. So there's a few of the guys, and I'll get to the kicker in just a second. So anyway, episode 226, cut down one surprise. I think it's Valdez. You get him back. That's what I've been saying. A lot of these guys were freaking out. So to be honest with you, here's the roster. Hopefully you can see that. I didn't put the cuts because I don't care. Like I said, outside of Valdez, I'm sorry that I can't get, upset over what's his name, the linebacker Stone, whatever his name is. I'm sorry. I just can't. He runs like a 5-flat 40 as a linebacker. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to I'm not going to freak out over that. I just don't see a lot of surprises there. I mean, I knew all those running backs were going to be the running backs. Am I going to get excited because Willis wasn't one of the 4 tight ends that they stayed with 3? I'm fine with that. They still haven't found a decent enough backup to George Kittle after all these years, which is fairly shocking. Jauan Jennings of the wide receivers, as you see there, I do think because he's going to start losing money that all of a sudden the calf is going to be, oh my God, it's a miracle. Not this week, but next week when they start getting ready for Seattle. He and Pearsall, I do think that at some point, maybe Sky Moore is going to be in the slot for week number 1. I have a feeling that Russell Gage, they don't want to guarantee his contract, but I bet that he comes back. Cowing is on there, but he is probably going to go on IR. Jordan Watkins isn't going to play for probably at least the first few weeks. As you can see right there, Demarcus Robinson, it is official today that was announced. He's out the first 3, and then the pup list is Ayuk. Offensive line-wise, I don't feel great. Trent Williams, obviously, at left tackle. McKivitz at right tackle. I'm okay with that. Hooney, it looks like he'll be ready for week 1 against Seattle. We shall see. I don't feel great about the center. We've talked about that a million times. Barch at left guard. He just hasn't played enough, so I don't know. Whatever on the backups. They're not great. Defensive line, we said at the beginning that, could these rookies come through? I'm nervous as hell. I mean, okay, there's Nick Bosa. I get it. Mikael Williams didn't play in any preseason games, and we've talked about it. He's the least experienced edge rusher coming out in the draft. CJ Williams was like a Tasmanian devil in the first couple of weeks in camp. Didn't play in any of the preseason games after he had his injury. Gross Matos is the guy that can play inside, outside, didn't play in any preseason games. In fact, just got taken off the PUP list. Huff had a great camp. Kalia Davis might be a key to the season. That scares me. And the reason why Hulk didn't make the roster was because it was between he and Jordan Elliott, and they decided that they needed a veteran. I mean, look at all that youth on that defensive line. Anderson, Kalia Davis, Robert Beal, Mikael Williams, CJ West, Alfred Collins. Those are all guys in like their first or second year who have proven absolutely, positively nothing. Now, could they? Yeah. But they're thinking to themselves, okay, Elliott's going to be a starter. We have to have a veteran. Probably CJ West next to him or Collins, probably West. And then they're going to have Bosa and a completely unproven Mikael Williams because they've got no better options. So they thought they'd keep Elliott around. And I think they'll get Valdez back to the practice squad. I just do. So we'll see. Linebacker-wise, I feel great. I think Warner and Winters are going to be awesome. And I think that, man, Nick Martin has come on. That first game, he was atrocious. Second, third game, I think he has elevated himself to the third linebacker spot, and he's going to be on special teams as well. I feel great about the linebackers, maybe more than any other position on the team, maybe outside of running back. Corners, I'm okay as long as Renardo Green gets going. Upton Stout went from a guy that I thought was awesome as far as the slot's concerned. Now I'm a little nervous. Chase Lucas, really good. But again, look at the backups at corner. Sharon Neal is a special teams guy. Darrell Luter Jr., I just haven't seen enough for him to be a backup corner. The third corner spot might be the weakest on the team, and I think they need a veteran there. Either trade for it or find somebody off the scrap heap. Same thing at safety. I love Siegel moving forward. I love Pinnock moving forward. I can't believe Grant made the team, and Jair Brown is up and down. They don't have a safety that can move sideline to sideline, and that's a major problem on this team. Mustafa's not going to be back for the first 4 games of the year. Morstead will be back on this team, and let's talk about Jake Moody, shall we? So that's where I put right there available. This is interesting. Go to the near bottom there, and let's see. And it says Dustin Hopkins, kicker of the Browns. Now, if Browns fans were sitting here, they would be like, they would be looking at that going, he sucks. We don't want him. Go for it. Dustin Hopkins has been a good kicker at times in this league, and if he were in camp and not Greg Joseph, I would have thought that would have been some sort of a competition. I never thought that Greg Joseph was true competition for Jake Moody. If Dustin Hopkins, who has a pretty big leg, would have been in camp, I would have thought that would have been true competition. Hopkins has been up and down, there's no doubt. Browns let him go. I would go so far as, if I was the Niners, to put Dustin Hopkins on my practice squad. That's how shaky I think Jake Moody is. That's how serious I would let Jake Moody know that his job was insecure. Now, whether that hurts him, helps him, I don't know. The psychology of a kicker is fragile. There's no question about it. He probably wouldn't like that. It probably would not help his psychology. For the 59-yard field goal he made and the game he had against the Raiders after missing one, and then to have Brant Boyer, the special teams coach, go to the podium the next week and say this could be career changing, and then have Jake miss an extra point, kick a ball out of bounds. We're just going to have to talk about this the entire season, and it's horrible to have to do that. I don't want to talk about a kicker. I don't want to talk about an offensive lineman because I know then he just held. I don't want to make a kicker a discussion point because I know he just missed a kick. I don't want to think to myself as I'm watching a game as a fan, let alone Kyle Shanahan on the sidelines as he's trying to map out strategy for a game, whether my kicker is going to make a extra point, a 30-yarder, a 40-yarder, a 50-yarder, whatever. Great, you made a 59-yarder. Damn, you doinked a 36-yarder. And it's going to drive Kyle through a wall. So he has no rope whatsoever. And so they need to, I think, secure a kicker onto the practice squad and not just wait. So Dustin Hopkins, to me, while not the greatest kicker, might be the best kicker available, and I'd put him on my practice squad. I'd put it on for 2 reasons. One, I want to have the best backup kicker available in the league, and I think this guy might be it. And 2, I want to tell Jake Moody, sorry, if you can't handle the pressure, then this is the wrong place for you. And yeah, you know what? We did use a 3rd-round pick on you, but you know what? We used one on Trey Sermon. We've used 3rd-round on picks before, and we've had to cut those players and admitted that we did wrong. The worst thing you can do as a general manager of a team is compound the problem. In other words, we've got to play this guy because we picked him at a certain spot. Now, Brock Purdy's playing because he was forced to play and Trey got hurt, and then they realized the better player is this player, and that's just the way it goes. But compounding the problem because what you paid a player, what you picked a player, that's the wrong thing to do. So you just play the best player regardless of where he's picked or what he's paid. That's just the way it goes. So look, he was picked in the 3rd round. It sucks. But the inconsistency of it is going to hurt your team. And it's going to hurt the rest of the team. And the rest of the team is going to look at Kyle Shanahan and go, look, man, it doesn't matter where the guy was picked anymore. And it really hurts your team because if he misses a kick, an extra point, a field goal, something to win a game, something to lose a game, the rest of the team is going to start going, hey, man, and they're going to lose faith. And we're going to have a whole situation again like Deebo Samuel, who's somebody's just going to lose it. You know, a dude who's been in the trenches the entire game or whatever, and then this dude sails one wide right in a makeable field goal is just going to go, fuck this guy, man. We've just had it. We can't do it anymore. And it's going to cause issues in the locker room. I've been there. I've seen it. and it's going to be a major problem. Look, it's beyond the point of you're right, you're wrong. We should, do you want to support the guy, whatever the case may be. It's to the point now where we're having a Bronx cheer at Levi Stadium when the dude makes an extra point in the preseason. It's over. It really is. Now, look, in the regular season, if he knocks down all the kicks, great. To me, the psychology is already broken. Whatever he did in the offseason, he missed that extra point. Everybody booed him. They were booing him on the next extra point that he made. It's a problem, and it's going to be talked about all season long. So, anyway, there's that. What else? Anything else we need to talk about? Let me give you your thoughts, because I just threw out a bunch of stuff there, and so I want to get your thoughts on all these things. Let me get this so I can see you a little bit better. But give me your thoughts on all that. I just vomited out a bunch of stuff for you, from cuts, players on the team, pulled back the curtain a little bit. Jake Moody, is there a player out there from a receiver standpoint? Is there somebody that you'd like to trade for? What position are you most nervous about? Because to me, backup corner, wide receiver, obviously, but I think Jennings is going to be there. So I think it's going to be Jennings, because he's going to start losing money, Pearsall, and then I don't know who's going to be in the top. Maybe it's Sky Moore. I mean, if it's Jennings, having not done most of camp, Pearsall, Sky Moore, McCaffrey, Kittle. I mean, can they beat Seattle with that group? And you're talking about Brian Robinson as your backup running back. Brock, I think is going to have a great season. Seattle's going to have a really good defense, but that's a winnable offensive team. And like I said, defense is going to take a minute. So what do you think? What makes you the most nervous now that you see what this roster is? How do you feel about the roster? You've seen preseason, kind of how you feeling about things. Give me your thoughts on that as well. Let me see what we got. And again, anytime you want to hit me up with a super, that would be outstanding. Support the show, plus get what your thoughts are on the show 100%. And again, we are live on location tonight. Oh, let me see. Hold on a second. Are things leaking through? Is that what you're saying? Are things leaking through? Believe me, no matter where I am not partying. This is pure business. I'm in a business trip is what I'm on. Pure business trip is what I'm doing. Let's see. The O-line blocking is the 420 says O-line. Yeah, the O-line's got me a little nervous. I think Trent's going to be fine. I know everybody freaks out on McKivitz. I think he's fine. Pooney, I got my fingers crossed, but I'm hearing that Pooney's going to be fine for week 1. Left guard's a major issue, because even as much as they like Ben Barch, and I know they do, he's been hurt twice already in camp, and Connor Colby made the team. I understand that, but some of the cut-ups on him are And Seattle's got a good, not great defensive line, and they've had some injuries in the preseason on the defensive line. Their first-round pick last year out of Texas, he's had a really nice camp. But the way they run their defense, and the Chargers had the same defense, but again, they were talking, Guy and Tim were talking all about it in the game, that especially Tim Ryan was talking, well, they run the same thing, and Jesse Minter comes from the same tree that Mike McDonald does at Michigan and all that kind of stuff, but it's not the same thing. They're not game planning for the 49ers. They're not playing the same kind of guys, and like Byron Murphy and the type of guys they have, different thing. And Seattle has a lot of edge rushers, a lot of good edge rushers on that team, and that can be a problem. And they run a lot of stunts and a lot of different stuff, and they're going to be tough. They're going to be tough for that offensive line. So I would agree with you 100%. 420. I think that's definitely going to be an issue. And then as far as run the ball is concerned, as far as you want to go north south on this team, I've talked about the center a ton of times. I'm not a huge fan, and if they're going to have an issue on the left guard, and how healthy is Dominic Pooney going to be, that's going to be an issue. And Seattle can get middle pressure. And if Mike McDonald, what he does is he kind of runs an amoeba defense. If he feels like you're weak, if he feels like you're strong on the edges, he's going to attack in the middle as far as the pass rush is concerned, and he'll bring a lot of pressure up there. And they have talent. They have talent there, and they'll bring safeties. He'll bring a lot of stuff if he thinks you're weak in the middle. So there you go. Hi, J49. It's good to see you, my friend. If I missed anybody, please make sure you say hello tonight. Just taking some questions post 49ers cutdown day today. Give us your thoughts on that. And again, Valdez was the only one that was a question, but I understand why they did it, because they wanted to keep more of a veteran. And like I said, I wouldn't panic. Could Valdez be picked up? Because, we made a big deal of him around here. He could, but I have a feeling that the most guys that they're going to want to keep, they're going to keep. And like I said, I like him. I like him a lot. We talked about him a lot, but I think they're going to get him back. I really do. Let's see here. We just make such a big deal. I'll reiterate this. We make such a big deal ourselves. And then remember, he's got to go on a roster. He's got to go on a 53. So there's a team that's weak, and maybe that's the case. A team is weak on the defensive line, and they're like, we just don't have enough, and we're going to put them on the 53. That they can't just put them on a practice squad. Now they could. Valdez could say, you know what? I don't want to be in San Francisco. I want to be on this team. And he could be advised by his agent, hey, you got a better chance to make it here. But think about this. If I'm an agent, and not only did I, like I said, you know Chris Kacerek, the D-line coach, Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator. But if you're a defensive lineman, think about this. If you're a defensive lineman with all the youth on the 49ers and the uncertainty, you got CJ West, you got Alfred Collins, you got Jordan Elliott, where are you going to go? Kevin Gibbons is hurt. What other team are you going to go to that has, I think, as weak of a defensive line as what the 49ers do? You want an opportunity to make the team long-term and play. I think there's a lot of opportunities to play on the 49ers. If I'm an agent, I'm pointing you towards the 49ers, not away from it. I'd be like, yeah, stay on that team. Because not only do you know the coordinators, the DC, the offensive line coach, but you're going to get an opportunity here. So, he could go sign with another. He doesn't have to. Once he's released, he has no allegiance here. But I would say that he probably would come back here. And could he get thrown onto another roster? And that's a whole nother story. He could. But a lot of people freak out, and they just think they're going to lose guys left and right if they release a guy. And a lot of times that player comes back. Now, if it's a veteran player, a lot of times a veteran player is pissed, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to come back to the practice squad. And maybe he'd go back to another practice squad just for the principle of it sometimes. But like I said, a lot of times of the 16, you'll get, 12 back, and then there's like 2 or 3 guys that, maybe you saw them in a preseason game, and there's something that intrigues you, and you'll bring some guys from the outside, but the majority of your guys, you get them back. That's just kind of how it is. All right, what else do we got here tonight? Because I do have some stuff in regards to the NFL Wire. Plus, I do have one caboose, and it's just kind of a thought. I want to get your thoughts on it as well, because I was talking to somebody about this today. So again, cut down day for the 49ers. Let me just throw this up there again. That is your initial key, being initial 49ers roster there. Now, not a lot of surprises. Like I said, they always keep a ton of offensive linemen, especially right out of the gate. Some people might be surprised they didn't take a 4th tight end, but whatever. Lots of defensive linemen on the initial. The thing that scares me is beyond Lenore and Green, you're not seeing any depth on the outside corners. Stout is an inside guy. Lucas is an inside guy. Neal's a special teams guy. Luter I don't trust. So I would be shocked if they didn't pick up a veteran corner. I wouldn't be surprised if they picked up a veteran safety on the back end. You're seeing, obviously, Mustafa there is on the PUP. That's 4 games. Ayuk on the PUP. That's 4 games at the very least as well. So, again, there's some positions there that I think are going to fluctuate a little bit initial. I wouldn't be surprised if, 4 guys. I wouldn't be surprised. Like 3, 4, maybe even 5 guys could be guys that they pick up. And, again, the way that the waiver wire works, you probably know this, but I'll remind you. So, through the first 3 games, the draft order is the waiver wire order. So, through the first 3 games, they have the 11th pick in the waiver wire order, which is, they haven't had this for a long time. So, there you go. You had 49ers 9-win season. Yes, I did. I really haven't changed it. Like, I was at 10 for a lot of the offseason. I was 10. I felt 10. Even 11, I was like, because the over-under on the Niners season, at least through the people I know, and I could bet that in the place that I'm at right now, was 10.5. And I was like, God, that just seems like a little high. And I know the schedule is absolute flat-out garbage. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in the NFL Wire here in a few minutes. But I don't know. It just felt, because of all the injuries and because they're so top heavy, that I'm like, oh my God. And they were going through all this kind of stuff, 20 guys out of camp, that at the time I was just like, when I kind of rubber hit the road kind of a thing, I was like, they're not going to win over 10. 11-6. And there's 17 games now. It's been going on a while, Lund. It's not new. It just sounded like a lot. I was like, nah, they're not going to get that. So it just sounded like a lot to me. So then I went 9-8. And I might be low on that. But it comes down to when the 49ers are healthy, the 49ers always are a big time contender. And here's one thing too. I think, and you can come back on me on this, and I'll we're not going to burn this tape. I think the 49ers are going to be like 5-5. I think they'll start out 5-5, and you're going to be freaking out, and you're going to be going rah, rah, and grumbling and all this kind of stuff because the defense is going to start slow. It just is. You and I have had this conversation a million times already. Robert Sala's warned you. Everybody has warned you. So they're going to go 5-5. And I know the Saints are on that early schedule. I know there's some early games in that schedule. I think the home game against the Cardinals and all that. There's some early games that are like, come on, man, they're winning that game. But they're going to finish strong. And that strong could be like, Kyle does December, right? And so, it wouldn't also shock me that they win 11, but I'm not hedging. I'm not saying, hey, remember that one time I did say they'd win 11. I still am going to stick with what I'm going to stick with because I'm getting nervous about the injuries, and they're very top heavy. But what's going to happen, I do think, is the defense is going to come around. Saleh is that good. I do believe in some of these rookies because what I saw early in camp. I do like what I've seen from Nick Martin. I do think that Upton Stout, because he missed all the preseason games, is going to start a little slow, but then he's going to come on. I think Mikael Williams, same thing. I think CJ West, same thing. I think some of these young players are really going to get the hang of it after that little, the initial maybe 6, 8, 10 games. And then they're going to start rocking and rolling. But you can't tell me that it's not going to hurt that Mikael Williams missed all the preseason games and CJ West and Upton Stout. That's going to be something, man. It means something for those guys to miss it. If Bosa miss it, who cares? Right? Warner misses it, who cares? And I might even say that Jauan Jennings, when, not if, because Jauan Jennings is going to start losing money in week 1. When, not if, Jauan Jennings plays in week 1, he's going to be fine. In fact, I'd say that you're hardly going to notice that he missed camp. He's going to drop a ball and the announcers are going to say, well, he missed training camp. He and Brock aren't going to be on the same page. Well, he missed training camp. There'll be some of that. There's no doubt. But they've played a lot together. And you know what? Here's the difference between Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk and Jauan Jennings. Jauan Jennings does not have to be open to catch a pass. Ayuk and especially Pearsall, they want to be on the same page. Telepathically, you've seen Ricky Pearsall and Brock Purdy in the way that they've played, not only in camp, but in preseason games. They are telepathically on the same page because they work so much in the offseason and in preseason and in camp. Brock Purdy has the utmost confidence in Jauan Jennings, and because of his size and how he is, he's kind of like an Anquan Bolden type. He just goes up and gets the ball. He just outfights you for the ball, and Brock has that confidence in him. And so I'm not saying it's not important that they play together, or in this case have not played together. It's just Brock's going to throw it to him because he believes in it. So it's a little less important that they are on, that they've played together. They know each other well enough. It's going to show a little bit. I'm not saying it won't, but it's a little bit different how they play. So I still think they're going to be fine. So they're going to play because if you're just joining us, I do think that Jauan Jennings is going to play. I do think that Jauan Jennings is going to say, damn, I forgot. I'm going to start losing money. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they came to some sort of a conclusion on this thing, some sort of a middle ground. But if they don't, and I don't think the 49ers are going to give him a contract that starts with a 2, then the Niners are just going to go, okay, this is it. Are you going to practice this week, or are you going to start losing money? You did a hold in, and that's great and everything else, and we covered for you on this whole, calf thing. And I'm not saying that the calf didn't happen at one point, but it's good enough to play now. And so now it's a contractual issue. But now he starts losing money, and it's not up to the 49ers to fine him. It's not fining. When you play, you get a check. When you don't, you don't, unless you're injured. He's not. And so they're going to start saying you don't get a game check. The cover is over. The cover is blown. When this has been going on in camp so that it's not a big deal, the Niners have been going with this whole thing of, okay, it's cool, man. We'll cover for you. We like you. We want you to be around. We're not going to, blow your cover to the media. Yeah, it's a calf. Yeah, it's a calf. Yeah, it's a calf. Yeah, it's a calf. But now when it comes to money. It's kind of like when you bet. Your friend says, hey, man, what do you think your team's going to do this year? And you say, man, I think it's good. They're going to be really good. And then, okay, hey, I'll bet you $20 that your team loses this week. And you go, then you get nervous because it's about money, right? Well, what's going to happen here is Jauan Jennings, now it's going to be about money. And the Niners are like, well, we can't cover for you anymore because you're not playing because it's a contractual issue. So we're going to start taking money from you. They're not taking money. They're just saying you're not playing this week, so you don't get your check. And so we'll know. And Jauan goes, whoa. The $7 million or 7.5 or whatever, it's not what I want. But now that we're talking about, over 17 games, I don't know, do the math real quick. What is that? $400,000 or whatever the case may be. Whoa. Don't want to start losing money here. So he'll play at that point, and he'll be pissed and this, that, and the other. But, he's going to start losing money that he can't get back. So he'll play. Ricky will play. Who's going to be the third guy, all that kind of stuff. So there's going to be that. Remember, everybody, boys and girls of all ages, supers will get you on the board 100% of the time. Our good friend Christopher, one of my favorites. All of you are my favorites. He says, did you see Mike Davis' comments about CMC on the Raw Room? I like the Robinson trade, but if he never sees the field, then it feels like a waste. Yeah, I understand that. I understand that thought. They didn't give up a ton, and you're talking about Brian Robinson. You're not giving up a ton to get Brian Robinson. And number two, like I said, I think what they have to start doing is they've talked about this for so long, and they've never been able to do it. And they have had the players to do it, but you guys can disagree with me on this, but I'm just going to do this. I just thought about this off the top of my head, but I do think this is the truth. Since they've had Christian McCaffrey, which hasn't been that long, this is the best number 2 running back they've had, right? I mean, Elijah Mitchell was good. Not better than Brian Robinson. I like Garendo, not better than Brian Robinson. This is the best running back that they've had. And coupled that with, he's a couple of years older, also put in there that he's coming off a major injury. And while I've told you since OTAs, when I stood right next to him and I said to him, are you 100% healthy? And he darted me a dirty look and then answered the question in a very nice way, but made it clear. And then 80 people have asked him that question since, and he's been very, very nice about it, but made it very clear every single time with not only how he said it, but with the eyes, the Superman super eyes saying, staring at you in the way that he said it, or way that he looked at you when he answered the question, that he is healthy. And I've done tons of interviews nationally and with, LA, Seattle, Arizona, through the division where people are doing these things. And I've said, I don't know how to make it any more clear to you that Christian McCaffrey is healthy. And so while that is true, I keep using this Christian McCaffrey comparison, which is whether you like it or not, Christian McCaffrey, they're going to start protecting you from yourself. Now, they've said that a million times, but I don't think they've had the running back where they felt like they could do it. Now, can Brian Robinson catch the ball like Christian McCaffrey? No. Can Garendo? No. Nobody can. But what they have to start doing if they want to elongate his career is they have to use the Steph Curry thing, which is Curry was playing 38 minutes and he was playing 34 minutes and he was playing 32 minutes. And that's just what they have to do to make sure that he plays longer. And then it's also not only the amount of carries or touches he gets in a game, it's the type of touches he gets in a game. Brian Robinson is 230 pounds, and he's a north-south runner. And if you look at the analytics, he's one of the best short yardage runners in the league. He's a great third down runner. I know McCaffrey is as well. But some of those, and I'm sorry if you're a fantasy guy, and I've told you that I would still take McCaffrey. Again, I know there's guys, there's Jamar Chase, and there's all these different running backs, and there's Bijan Robinson, and there's obviously Saquon and all these kind of things. But I still think even with Brian Robinson, I think McCaffrey's a top 10 pick. He might lose some short yardage stuff. He might lose some touchdown stuff. But Brian Robinson is a bruiser. And so while you want to use McCaffrey in all ways, I think that utilizing him a little bit less in those situations where it's 3rd and 1 and he's going to get piled I think that using Brian Robinson in those situations, that's why they got him. They saw a great opportunity to get a 230-pound battering ram, and Kyle is a 1 foot in the ground kind of a guy, and said, look, not only is this the best back, number 2 running back we've had since we've had Christian McCaffrey, but remember, when Mike Shanahan, let alone Kyle Shanahan, had their best rushing years, it was with a multi-faceted running game. It was with multiple running backs, I should say. That was a stupid way that I said it before, but it was multiple running backs. They had lots of running backs in the backfield. And Kyle says this all the time, because of the way that they do things, they need more than one running back. They just do that. Now, the rest of the league does that as well. But what I'm saying is that as great as Christian McCaffrey is, get him a bunch of touches, maybe more in the perimeter, more catches. I'm not saying less runs, but I'm just saying, he's going to get hit. There's no way to avoid it. But if you can do some of the, the heavier lifting with a 230-pound battering ram and explain that to him, and Christian's still going to say, I'm not buying that. And Kyle uses the term save him from himself constantly. But Kyle's got to realize, and this is part of the problem with this, is Kyle's the coach. And Kyle's got to say to Christian McCaffrey, dude, I'm sorry, Robinson's in. Because I don't know if you've ever seen Brian Robinson. He's a big boy. And so that's what it comes down to, is that they will use Brian Robinson, and he'll be a great changeup. He'll be a great mix for McCaffrey. And then McCaffrey will see, you know what? I feel pretty good. We're in week 10. I feel pretty good. So great question. And I appreciate the super. Always love supers, by the way. Supers tonight from Fuji ×2. Thank you, Fuji, from our good friend Tommy and from Christopher as well. And again, any questions, comments, thoughts, you can always get them on the board with a super. I love the Robinson pickup. I really do. I think that, again, it's going to come down to the offensive line and how well they can do things. But last year, and you can go back to the 49ers on a lot of third and shortened situations through the years, and Kyle having opportunities to win Super Bowls. Third and shorts have cost them a lot of situations. And I think that Brian Robinson is going to, in fact, as I'm thinking of, since Kyle's been here, let's go back to 17. Since Kyle's been here, having McCaffrey and Robinson as their short yardage backs, this is the best they've had. There's no question about it. And that situation hopefully will rectify, because they've had situations where they couldn't get it done. And last year, again, we're talking about red zone situations. Yeah, a lot of it was Christian McCaffrey, but if you have a Brian Robinson here too, that's going to rectify a lot of that stuff. Let's see. You're talking about Kyle not pulling back on McCaffrey. You might be right. He just might not be able to help. He might not be able to help himself. He just might not be able to help himself. Hi, Enrique. It's good to see you, man. He might just be like, I'd really like to do that, and I just can't. And Brian Robinson's going to hit him upside the head and go, bro, why'd you bring me here? It's very possible. What else do we have? Anything else on the Niners before I hit NFL Blitz? Because I got a lot to say about an engagement today. But anyway, if you just joined us, we went over a ton on Cutdown Day. By the way, I haven't put this on the stage today. I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to see this trending. I don't. You don't. I don't. We don't. Okay, that's the end of that. All right, should we do it? Should we do some NFL Wire? I said NFL Blitz. I always do that. Let's do some Wire.
It's time for a look at the NFL stories making headlines. It's the NFL Wire on John Lund Unleashed.
All right, let's do some Wire. Let's see. Push this down a little bit here. But I'm on the road. It always screws up. I want to vomit on that. I've never really said anything about it. Never really whatever. It's just like live and let live. You know me, my philosophy, which is like you do you, right? I don't care that she was at games. It never bothered me. I didn't care that they showed her in the booth constantly. I don't care that he's changed his style. I don't care that they did a podcast. I don't care. I generally don't care. But now it's all over my feed, and I got to deal with it. Here's a couple of quick thoughts. Number one, they're never going to make it to the altar. So I don't know what the big deal's all about. Something's going to happen. It was fun while they were dating. It tends to be that once they get to this part, and believe me, I'm not wishing harm upon these two in terms of, a big breakup or anything like that. That's no fun. You know me. Over the years, I've talked about my divorce. It's no fun, and I've remarried, and it's great, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't wish that upon them. It's just that, what would she do? I mean, doesn't she write? Again, I couldn't name you a Taylor Swift song. I've probably come across her songs every now and then. And again, if you like Taylor Swift, I'm not saying that anything wrong or negative or anything like that. You do you live your life. You put ketchup on a hot dog if you like. You put, you do you. Mahomes puts ketchup on a steak. I don't care. You put pineapple on a pizza. You do whatever. You listen to whatever music you like. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. I happen to just never have listened to her stuff, but I see people at her concerts. They seem to be having a fun time and a good time and everything. It just poppy music like that is not my bag, but that's cool. And I'm not angry. Like I said, they're in a box. They're doing that. They're showing her. She's rooting for him. I don't really have an issue with it, but then now it's all over my feed and they're doing all this kind of stuff. And, it's going to become just this major thing all year long. And it's going to take on a life of its own, even worse than it did before. But first thing I thought when I saw him proposing to her is I thought they're going to make a big deal of this whole thing. And it's probably never even going to make it to the altar. I could be wrong, but that's kind of the thing is. And then I don't know what the percentage is of celebrity marriages that actually make it. But if I think I'm correct in this, that marriages in general are now under 50% in our country. And then celebrity marriages, because think about it, she's on tour all the time. He's playing football now. He's coming to the end of it, but he's such a personality. I mean, he's got even more personality than Jason does. And so he's going to finish and he's going to be in some capacity, probably in some kind of studio show or doing some kind of thing, or I don't know what he's going to do, but he's going to have a life. He's not going to just end and travel around with her. And neither does she. And she doesn't want that anyway. And, marriages work because you have something going on. She's got something going on. Like, it's very nice to be around each other, but you can't do that 24/7. So she's going to be on tour a lot. She's going to be doing his thing and they're going to miss each other. I don't know. We'll see. If I was a betting man, and I happen to be, I don't even think they'll make it to the altar, but I could be wrong in that. So you can give me your thoughts on that whole thing. It's a big deal today. It's a big storyline today. I don't want to be pissy about it or negative or anything like that, but I think it's going to be all for naught because I think at some point it's not going to work. He's kind of an average Joe guy from Cleveland, Ohio. She's the biggest pop star in the world. It's kind of been a fun story and a funny story. And like I said, you do you, and I haven't had a problem. And I don't have a problem with it up to this point. And I actually, despite what I've said, hope that it works out. But my first thought is, celebrity marriages don't usually make it. Average guy from Cleveland. What's he going to do afterwards? Plus, I looked at the ring today and they said it was like 13 carats. And I know that's like a whopper of a ring, but how could you ever get her? Like, I don't know how you could keep up. Like she's a multi-billionaire. And he's doing pretty well for himself. And I'm sure, like, I don't know, the podcast I'm sure is doing well. And what was the record they set with her on it? Like, the most concurrent listeners or something, 1.13 million or something like that. And, she's obviously got his star power up to some certain level, but at some point she's like, I'm kind of carrying the load here. I don't know. I just can't anticipate a lot of problems down the road, but I could be wrong. Maybe they really are in love and whatever. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting one to watch. It's always fun. You can give me your thoughts on that. Second thing on the NFL wire tonight, the New Orleans Saints have named their starting quarterback, and that will be one Spencer Rattler. And we will have Arizona versus Arizona in the week 2 at New Orleans if Spencer Rattler doesn't get hurt or anything in week number 1. So there were 3 quarterbacks trying to get that job. First, they had a rookie going for it. They had Rattler going for it, and they had Danville's own Jake Haener going for it. Jake Haener released by the Saints today. Don't know if the 49ers would have any interest in Jake Haener. Do remember he was at 49ers, they had like the open tryout day or whatever, and Jake Haener was at that. So I don't know what the 49ers think of him. I thought he was going to be better. A lot of people, we had him on, and I remember we were asking him, Pop and I were asking him about, it was right after, obviously Brock Purdy had made it, and a lot of people were making a lot of comps because Haener was undersized. Haener was a white guy, all that kind of stuff. And I remember asking Jake Haener about the comps, and he was, I wouldn't say he was mad, but he was a little bit like, hey, man, I'm my own guy. He was very confident. And I thought he was going to be a good player. And, doesn't mean he can't be a good player at this point. But Jake Haener Didn't work out with the Saints, that's for sure. And so didn't work out for the Saints with Jake Haener, been released. I don't know what's going to happen from there. I think he's a good player. He had some issues, had some health issues, not just injuries, but actual health issues with the Saints. We'll see where Jake Haener goes. But it's going to be Spencer Rattler, who, remember, big time in big time in Oklahoma. A lot of people thought he was going to be in the next in line after Baker Mayfield and Murray left there, and then kind of went all around. Then he went to South Carolina. And anyways, he's kind of climbed the ladder a bit with the Saints. And so that week 2 game, after they get Sam Darnold in Seattle, then they go that week 2 at New Orleans, go across the country, and they'll take on Spencer Rattler. So that matters to 49ers fans, that they'll take on Rattler in week number 2. And then number 3 there, I want to talk about trade requests real quick because it's nauseating and everybody freaks out. And I think it's just for clicks, but I just want to straighten this whole thing out. So Jacoby Myers is the latest to ask for a trade. And they generally don't work. I mean, Trey Hendrickson, for example, with the Bengals, that would have been a perfect example of somebody who really needed to be traded. Everybody needs edge rushers. The guy's had the second most sacks in the league over the last 5 years. I mean, guy couldn't be more productive. He's 31 years old, which isn't too old. Myles Garrett's the only player in the league that has more sacks than Trey Hendrickson. You would think, $30 million nowadays. I mean, Garrett's making $40 million and Bosa's making 30. I mean, that's the going rate for an edge rusher. And I know a lot of teams would pay that number. There was no traction whatsoever of Hendrickson getting traded. So he ended up settling for a 1-year, $30 million deal. Everybody was right. Where should Terry McLaurin go? Oh my God, he could go here and here and here and here. And Niners fans were like, why don't you just trade for Terry McLaurin and put Ayuk there because he's friends with Jaden McDaniel? And it's like, yeah, the Niners are going to want to go through another contract negotiation. He gets $96 million from the Commanders, who are in the second year of, they're not going to surprise people this year. You knew McLaurin wasn't going anywhere. So, Micah Parsons, he's going to get signed by the Cowboys. It's going to happen right under the wire, right before they play. So that Thursday, they play a week from Thursday. Michael will sign on Monday or Sunday or Saturday or right before that week. Micah Parsons will sign. So Micah Parsons, he's going to get a trade. And he's laying on a table. He's eating burgers or whatever at the last preseason game, whatever. He's going to play. He's going to play. So everybody who asks for trades and Jacoby Myers and, Pete Carroll's a 70-plus-year-old head coach. He's not coaching for 5 years from now. I don't care about a draft pick. I mean, if I'm the Niners, because I know Niner fans are probably going to want to jump on that. Oh, Jacoby Myers, that'd make a lot of sense. It would make a lot of sense. Raiders aren't trading him. The Raiders are looking at going, look, we didn't take Pete Carroll a year off of being in Seattle and saying, hey, Pete, we got a 5-year plan. There's no 5-year plan. They've got Brock Bowers. They bring in Geno Smith to win right now. They get a running back in Ashton Genty. They're trying to win now. Their defense is a big question mark, but I mean, offensively, they're trying to win right now. They're not going to trade possibly their best wide receiver in Jacoby Myers. So right away, he's asking for a trade. The next step, as you well know, he'll probably scrub his social media of anything Raiders, and everyone will freak out on that. And everyone's going to write stuff about who's his next team and what makes sense and what teams are going to trade for him. Nobody's going to trade for him. He's going to play for the Raiders. And so one of the most overrated things is when a player asks for a trade, then the whole thing happens. He scrubs his social media. The agent comes out and says something. The player comes out and says something. This, that. It goes through a whole process. People write these things about the top 5 teams that he could go play for. And then it comes down to the fact that he probably signs a contract with that team. And so it's just funny today. I saw Jacoby Myers ask for a trade, and I thought, first of all, teams are pretty much set in their rosters and their 53s. Now, are there going to be a few guys that are going to go here and here? Yeah. But in terms of, especially financially, are they going to go right now? And we've talked about this, and give an outside receiver a bunch of money. I understand Washington doing it for Terry McLaurin, but they kind of got through that phase, teams in which they were drunk in 2024 and decided that even though receivers were a dime a dozen and insurers weren't quarterbacks as far as leverage were concerned, they're not going to go out and pay a bunch of wide receivers. So Jacoby Myers, enjoy Las Vegas because you're not going anywhere. All right. Anywhere. Oh, yeah. We had one more that we had to do. Oh, yeah. There's one more that, we got to, you know what? Let's do this. Now, I know this isn't not exactly caboose pistol material, but I wanted to do this just because it had been such a big story.
John Lund Unleashed presents the caboose pistol.
Wedged in the crack of her buttocks.
Somehow, someway, Lundo thinks this is the best way to leave a final impression on you for the day.
The old caboose pistol, everybody has one.
Did you say caboose pistol?
I know some women who could hide a machine gun in there.
Yeah.
Leave me out of this, you weirdo. Here's John.
Not a weirdo, and this isn't even really caboose material, but I just saw this, and so many people have been talking about it. I just wanted to explain something. Did you see the, it was Michael Keaton that was in it, and it was the it was the McDonald's story, and he was Ray Kroc. Of course, Ray Kroc, who used to own the Padres years and years ago. And it was how basically Ray Kroc ripped off the original McDonald's guys, and started obviously in California. So what they did was a guy came in, long story short, and came to Ray Kroc, who was Michael Keaton in the movie or whatever, and said, "So do you know what business you're in?" This lawyer came to him and said, "Do you know what business you're in?" And the guy goes, "Well, I'm in the hamburger business." And he goes, "No." He goes, "No, you're not in the hamburger business." He goes, "You're in the real estate business." He goes, "Because if you think you're going to make a bunch of money selling hamburgers at 10 cents a pop, that's not happening." He goes, you are in the real estate business. And Michael Keaton's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And he's like, "What you do is what you should be doing is you take these franchisees and you sell them the land that they then lease from you, and they're leasing that all the time, and they're doing these burgers and boom, 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 boom." And then the light went on his head, and he went, "Oh my God, that's what I need to be doing. I'm leasing that land that these franchisees are building these McDonald's on." And so McDonald's is the largest landowner in the United States. So there's this huge confusion right now that's going on. And this is going to make sense in just a second. I'm sorry, I got to do business here. But so everyone freaked out over Cracker Barrel, right? Now, I've eaten at Cracker Barrel probably 3 times in my life, so I really don't care. But I told you this story before where my dad was in the potato business, French fries, and accidentally he had his French fries packed, his label, and they normally had red ink on them, and then they had green ink on them, and everybody all around the country, and he had them in Chicago and New York and all these places, and they freaked out. They're like, "These aren't the same fries. These aren't the same fries. Take them back." And he had to go all over the country and say to these people, "They're the same fries. It's just they accidentally had the wrong ink on that day," and blah, blah, blah. So now everybody's freaking out over this boring Cracker Barrel label, right? And see that one on the right that's got it's at an old, almost looks like it's like a cabin, right? So if you look at these companies now that own and see the boring building, it's not the Cracker Barrel label that it's on, it's the boring building. And so if you look at nowadays McDonald's, it's not like they have the playlands and everything and all this weird stuff. McDonald's now looks like a boring building. The old ones were like this crazy looking building, or a Pizza Hut had that big roof on it. Now it's a boring building, or a Taco Bell used to have that crazy looking building. Now it's a boring building with a boring logo. They all have boring buildings and boring logos. Do you know why? Or like you see Cracker Barrel right there. It's got that crazy looking thing. Now it's a boring building with a boring logo. The reason why it's like that now is they own land. And so what they do is when, let's say that they're done being a Cracker Barrel and they just want to be an office building. Well, then you don't have to make the thing a McDonald's into an office building. Or if you have a Pizza Hut and that Pizza Hut fails, then that Pizza Hut doesn't have to be converted because they're like, "Oh, that's an old Pizza Hut. Oh, that, I don't know. That vape shop. Oh, that used to be a Pizza Hut." So they want to sell it again because they own it, and they want to then, after the Pizza Hut fails, they want to sell it to somebody. Well, is it easier to sell as a dumb looking Pizza Hut with that dumb roof on it, or a dumb looking McDonald's that has a playland attached to it? Or is it just the real basic looking Cracker Barrel? Or is it the Cracker Barrel that looks like an old, old barn? So that's why they're doing it. And so everyone's freaking out. So I'm sorry that I have to do an economics or a business 101 class here, but that's why they're doing it. And so I was laughing hard because my dad was in that business. And when they were starting to convert these things, he told me about it. And it's like, they're converting these places because they own the land. And if these places fail, or, whatever the case may be, and they would just want to sell it because they own the land, they just want to just sell the building, and they don't want it to look like some McDonald's stupid looking playland or some Pizza Hut thing that's got a big red roof on it. And then they got to try to sell it to somebody who goes, "It's got a dumb red roof on it. I'm not buying that dumb thing." So anyway, there's your business 101 lesson for the day. And it's not very caboose pistolist, and I apologize for that, and it'll be better tomorrow. But I'm just telling you, who cares? Like, seriously, does no one have anything better in their life to be like, "I'm not eating at that damn Cracker Barrel. Look at that logo." Like, it's become this national thing. Like, it's become a huge thing that people are like, nope, I'm only eating at the Cracker Barrel that looks like a cabin with that dude on it. And I can't eat the one that's boring, that's got just like the white building, the white generic building. I ain't eating at that one. Like, is the food good or not? Well, yeah, it's the same food. Well, then who cares? Nope. Got to be that cabin looking thing. Or it's got to be the Pizza Hut with the big red roof on it. Or it's got to be the Taco Bell. Not the, what is wrong with you? Like, is there just not enough going on in your life? Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, if I pull up to the Pizza Hut and I'm really hungry and I smoked a bunch of weed and it's got the pizza with the cheese crust, oh my God, I'll like eat 10 pizzas of that and I'll roll myself home. Oh, it didn't have the red roof on it? Not eating at that Pizza Hut. We're going to drive around the city until we get the Pizza Hut with the red roof on it, and that's the end of that. What, are you kidding? We're going to the first Pizza Hut we see. If it has cheese crust, we're eating at it, and I don't care. What's wrong with people, man? You have time to worry about what the friggin' Crackle Barrel looks like? And I read tonight, now maybe this is a fake tweet or something, I read tonight that they're going back. That they've had so much backlash that they're actually going back. Like they're going to, people have spoken. We're going back to the old logo. It's like, oh my God, how soft are you people? Exactly. My taste buds don't care. Like, I don't care. Like I said, I don't have an opinion on Cracker Barrel, the food. Because like I said, I haven't eaten at a Cracker Barrel in probably 25 years. And I don't remember it being that good. I might have had some biscuits or something, biscuits and gravy. I don't know. But like, I can give you an opinion on a Taco Bell, the old one versus because I grew up in Southern California. So I remember the old ones and I know the new ones. The cantinas that have the booze are great. But there's one by my house that's very boring looking. The Pizza Hut old versus the new, the red roof versus the non-red roof. Everyone knows what a McDonald's looks like now versus like the Playland and all that stuff with all the weird looking McDonald's. Like, you know that. It doesn't make any difference. The difference is they want to resell that because they own it and lease the land to the franchisee, and they want to resell that at some point, and they don't want to give you a discount because it's got a damn red roof and you're trying to have it be an office building. And you're like, our office building is not going to have a big, giant, dumb red roof on it. Give us half off. And they're like, we're sick of giving people half off. We're not doing that anymore. So there you go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we had to talk about that. It's Niners Cutdown Day. What's wrong with me? Let's not talk about that. It's dumb. I don't even know why I put that in the show. It's stupid. Shouldn't have done that. My taste buds don't care. So good. All right. Anything else tonight? Let me scroll through this. I don't know why my stuff on the run is my equipment here on the run is screwing around. Sometimes it makes me have to scroll through this. Let me see if I can get this to go because it's scrolling up, scrolling down, but not up. Some weird stuff like that. I don't know why it's doing that. Anyway, yeah, exactly. My taste buds don't care. It's like, whatever. I'm going to, so funny. People are just like, I am outraged. It's like, do you not have anything in your life that you're so outraged by the fact that Cracker Barrel has a boring logo now? My God. Yeah, there you go, Pine. 250 million in one day. 250 million. Like, my God, man. And she got canned. It was like, she's out. She put out this big long tweet too. Like, it's like, pfft. And they did. They just did it because they wanted a boring building. They didn't have to necessarily change the logo. Like, do you have to eat at that cabin looking thing? Like, weird. Anyway, that is episode 226. Cut down day, one surprise. We told you about it. You get them back generally. Everyone's freaking out. Everyone's going to pick up our players. You generally get them back. Who's out there? I gave you the list, especially wide receivers. I think the Niners are not only going to look at who's out there, especially from a receiver standpoint, but also maybe make some trades as well. But you see those receivers. And again, it's 2 a.m. and the lights came on. I'm sorry, but there's not a lot of names. McCole Hardman, I know you hate that guy. Deontay Johnson, he's had some issues. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Seahawks let him go. Robert Woods, he's had a lot of injuries, but that's a veteran guy that could, at least for a couple of weeks, keep you going. Brendan Rice, Jerry's kid, that would be more of a long-term thing. Malachi Corley is a guy I know they liked, and Robert Saleh knows him. Would he be a guy? Dustin Hopkins, I'm just saying I'd pick him up right away and just put him on the practice squad because I don't trust our friend third-round Jake. CJ Henderson's just a name. First rounder, they need corners. De'Aaron Kendrick would make a lot of sense. He started some games for the Rams. They need a backup. Willie Lampkin is just more of an ode to Krug. Mike Edwards or Tony Jefferson, a veteran safety, wouldn't be a bad thing. Cleve Farrell, I put at the top because I know the Niners really like him and he can hold an edge. And remember, it's not that Mikael Williams can't come back, be effective. It's just that I know they really like they really like Cleve Farrell. They missed him. They feel like during the Super Bowl and the loss to Kansas City in Las Vegas, not going to be a pass rusher. Could be a guy, like I said, early in the season. And then, Williams gets up to speed and the D linemen, the young guys get up to speed. But again, he was a guy that the Niners liked. He wasn't here when Robert Saleh was here, so maybe that wouldn't make sense. But there are some veteran names to keep in mind. And this will not be the 53. Remember, this is the, say it with me, initial 53. I expect maybe 3 or 4 different names to be on that 53-man roster for the 49ers. So there you go. We gave you some NFL wire tonight as well. Yes, KELCE and Swift, yes, they are engaged. We'll see if they make it to the altar. Spencer Rattler has been named the Saints starting quarterback. Why do you care about that? Because the Niners go to Nolans in week 2. And again, remember, trades, requests, I don't think the latest will get traded. So there you go. That is the latest, and that is episode 226. We will be here tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock Pacific time. Make sure you are here. We're back on schedule. We just had a couple of travel days, so I apologize we weren't here for the last couple, but we will be back at the same regular time. So 7 o'clock Pacific tomorrow. Any other questions, comments, or thoughts, leave them right underneath here. I'm always on X, so make sure that you hit us up on X as well, at John Lund Radio. Oh my God, I didn't even put us on X tonight. I forgot. Anyway, always on X, so make sure you hit us up on X. We'll be back on there tomorrow. That's at John Lund Radio, so hit us up there as well. So underneath here, questions, comments, thoughts on X, at John Lund Radio. Those are the places that I am mostly on, and will be on the road tomorrow night. Let's see, today's Tuesday, and Thursday night as well. 7 o'clock both nights. Everyone have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you then.